Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Kyle Coleman, the VP of Revenue Growth and Enablement at Clari. Good morning, Kyle. How are
Hey,
you
how you
doing?
doing, Mark?
Good. I'm
Doing
doing
well,
well.
thank you.
Yeah. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, certainly. So I got into B2B tech in 2012 at an advertising agency, learned a little bit about how things function, and then pretty quickly realized that advertising wasn't really for me.
Hmm.
I was fortunate enough to jump over to an early stage startup called Looker. I was the
Hmm.
sixth employee at Looker back in 2013, and then grew the SDR team at Looker from just me to about 65 people across the globe as Looker grew to about 800 or so employees. And
Hmm.
then I jumped over to Clari in the beginning of 2019 to lead sales development and sales enablement.
Very good. I am familiar with Looker. Right? They've done very well.
Indeed.
I think I'm actually on a member, not a member. What would it be? A subscriber?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as a remote employee and a remote employer?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mark. I've never been technically a remote employee, and especially in the early days at a startup, it's useful. At least for me, it was useful to have everybody in the room because the pace is so crazy and you're moving so fast. But as we started to grow at Looker, we had new offices, satellite offices here and there, and we were more focused on bringing on the right people as opposed to bringing on the people in the right location, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Oh
So
yeah.
we would hire a satellite person in Austin or in Boulder or in New York or wherever it was that fit the role best and made it work. So that was kind of my first dipping my toes in the water with remote work, was that kind of arrangement where the majority of employees were still out of headquarters here in California, but then there was a smattering of people all across the globe. And it was, super interesting to see how that sort of culture unfolded.
Yeah. So, well, then how did it unfold? And just out of curiosity, did you do we're going to have a person in Boulder, or was it we're going to have a team in Boulder?
It was a little bit of both. So I'll answer your second question first, which is we found the right people at the right time. And then we focused on the markets where it made the most sense to start to build kind of the secondary or the fuller satellite offices. So in the earlier days at Looker, we knew we were in California and we needed more time zone coverage, and New York made the most sense so that we could cover the East Coast as well as Europe a little bit more fully. So started building up more of a presence in New York. But then interestingly, I think the best example of this is we hired our VP of customer success out of Boulder. He was the only person in Boulder, and then built the team around him because he was
Hmm.
the right person to lead the function. So it was a little bit of both.
Yeah, that
Um,
would be an interesting way to go about it.
yeah, yeah. And then the way we made it work, video conferencing was not nearly as prevalent or pervasive as it is now. So this is a huge boon to remote work, I think, to be able to have these kind of conversations in real time. But I mean, there's no single secret, right? It's all about the company's culture and the attitude and willingness to over communicate, I think, is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I've done a lot of these podcasts, and it seems like each company has their own culture, and they have to figure out what is the right combination for them.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think needs to be done differently to make it more effective?
Yeah, great question. Current events are a very interesting sort of test case for this, as pretty much everybody in tech at least has transitioned to this work from home environment. It's a real pressure test to see, hey, can we make this work? And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people are realizing,
Hmm.
yes, we can.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that I think is still missing, and what personally I'm missing in this new fully remote environment, as good a job as we're doing with the virtual coffees and happy hours and all that sort of thing,
Hmm.
I think the thing that's missing are like the hallway conversations.
Yeah.
How do you replicate that? Whatever kind of information is passed at the water cooler, that you just
Hmm.
see people and catch up with them in 30 seconds and understand what's going on in their world. And if we can figure out the right way to replicate or recreate that, I think we'll have solved a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that sounds like a business opportunity, the virtual water cooler or virtual
Exactly.
hallway. We'll talk about that later. How's that? So, what is the story behind Clary, and what's the journey been like?
Yeah, so Clari was founded about 7 years ago, originally as a mobile app just to make the selling experience smoother. I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but if you've ever used the Salesforce mobile app, you may notice that it's not super optimized.
Hmm.
So that was one major component of it. The second component is that the founding technologist of Clari is first of all, super smart, and this is way over my head, so I'm dumbing it down in a major way. But he's pioneered a lot of different artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that, when applied to CRM data, do a really nice job forecasting what's going to happen with every individual deal. So if we solve the data getting entered into the CRM by making the mobile experience better, and we can solve the predictive component by the AI and ML sorts of algorithms operating in the background, then individual reps and sales leaders and boards of directors will know what's going to happen in their business and be able to make way smarter decisions. So that was sort of the impetus to start, and it's evolved from there to become a more comprehensive revenue operations tool that's useful for top of funnel leaders like myself, as well as sales leaders and C-suites and everybody in between. So that's the main purpose, though.
So just for clarity, are you an add-on to Salesforce, or do you integrate with Salesforce and other CRMs?
So not literally a Salesforce plugin, but we have a real-time bi-directional sync with Salesforce. So if you log into your Clari app, then anything that you write from Clari goes back to Salesforce and vice versa. So that's the relationship right now.
Yeah, and if you're going to integrate with the CRM, that's probably the one to start with.
Right.
And as you know, they're about what, half hour from us?
That's exactly right.
I actually have friends that work there.
Yep, they're good pals of ours.
Yeah. So how did you incorporate the idea of remote at Clari?
So it's interesting, actually, Mark, because Clari is mostly based out of headquarters. We have our main office here in Sunnyvale, and it's engineering and product marketing, as well as G&A and other functions like that. But our sales team, for the most part, is entirely distributed. So even we have our inside, what would traditionally be inside sales segments, as well as outside sales segments, are all in region. Our New England sellers are in Boston, and our TOLA sellers are in Dallas and Austin, and all across the U.S. And so from the jump, Clari has been more predisposed, I should say, to fostering some sort of remote environment. So this change for us with current events has been different for all the HQ employees, but it hasn't been a wholesale change from a selling process standpoint because our sales force was already distributed.
And speaking of the pandemic, did it pose any unexpected roadblocks or challenges for headquarters?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said it didn't. We're all trying to scramble to figure out what's going on here, but we feel pretty confident that our solution really can add value to people at this time, and again, help them understand, given their current pipeline inventory, what's going to happen in the future. So we feel good that we are creating a software that really is helping people. Now, the actual day-to-day functioning of the HQ employees and like still trying to work together, and how to replace whiteboarding sessions and brainstorms and things like that, that's still a work in progress. But from a top-line revenue standpoint, we feel pretty good.
And I'll tell you, I've worked with a product twice this week. It's called Screen, and it allows it actually has a virtual whiteboard application to it. So you might want to. And I've worked with it twice. It does work, but it was one-to-one. I haven't done anything with multiple people.
Cool, that's a good tip. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, cool. And there are companies like Gabriel that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups. How important do you think this will be, especially now, for companies like yourself that are looking to hire really quality people is the key and in a hurry?
Yeah, I think it's super valuable especially if the appetite for hiring the best person, regardless of location, if the appetite for that increases, then companies like Gaper are extremely well positioned to make an immediate impact and really help companies scale and accelerate and grow.
Well, I would agree with you. So thank you, Kyle, very much for your time today. I wish you all the best of luck with Clari, and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right now.